YouTube channel. So today we're going to be talking about how to do a single button jacket. So now we are going to start. So we'll be needing her the jacket length, the bust, the waist, the hip, all the measurements, the half length and the bust length. So let us start anyway. So her jacket length is 29. So I'll be adding 2 extra inches to her length, so that by the time we're done sewing, it goes back to 29. Okay, so now her since is the back, and we're going to have an opening at the back, so we're going to keep in an extra 2 inches for that opening out of the measurements. So now her shoulder is 15, that's 7.5. Okay, 7.5. But of course, because we're going to add the shoulder pad, and of course for shoulder pad allowance, normally we're supposed to add just a half-inch allowance for joining, but because there's going to be a shoulder pad, we're going to add in a full 1 inch. Then we go back to, okay, so I'm using 8 inches for the armhole distance. So at towards the armhole, we go back to our normal measurements. So it goes in like so. Her bust line is 9 inches. That's the shoulder to bust is 9 inches. Her half length is 16 inches, which is quite tall. So her bust is 31, but because it's a jacket, I'm not going to be using her actual bust. I'm going to add 1 inch. I'm making it 32. Then I add my extra 1.5 inch allowance. Her waist is 24, right? So I'm going to be adding an extra 2 inches because I'm going to be doing that at the back. So I'm adding 1 inch for that and 1 inch for sewing allowance. So that's it. Her hip, 10 inches distance from the waist. Her hip is 33, but of course, like I explained, I'm going to be using 34 instead. So that's, I'm going using 34 because I don't want it to be too tight. Although there's going to be an opening, so it can't even be too tight. But I'm going to be using 34. Then I'll add my extra 1.5 inch allowance. Okay. So I just remember the waist. Our waist is 24. I'm going to make it 25. So I'm adding extra 2 inches. Okay, so 1.5, 2 inches, 1.5. So that's okay. So I'm going to be using 2.5 for the neckline, neck width at the back. 2.5 by half, or 3/4 inch. Then of course, because there's a shoulder pad, I'm not going to be slanting it all the way to 1 inch. I'm slanting it by just ½ inch because of the shoulder pad allowance. Okay, so this is how it is. So now we cannot cut yet. Let us do our slits. So our slit is going to be 10 inches long. So I'm doing it at the slit at 21 inch. I made it 10 inches. Of course, by the time we sew, the slit will come up a bit. Then of course, I'm going to be keeping, remember that the back has an opening, remember that. So I'm going to be keeping ½ inch to join, because we're going to cut it open and join it back. So of course, I'm going to keep a ½ inch, remember that, for joining allowance. Then our overlap, so we cut. Okay, so this is the back. Okay, so this is the front. We're handling the front now. So for the front, we would also be keeping an extra 2 inches allowance for lapel, for the lapel. Okay, like so. Then we'll do the same thing that we did for the back. Our shoulder is 15, that's 7.5, make it 8.5. Then neckline, neck width is 2.5, like the back. Then armhole distance, I'm using 8 inches because she's quite slim. Her armhole is 15 or 16. So then the bust line is 9, half length is 16, hip line 26. So we'll take the same measurement. Okay, remember that towards the shoulder, towards the armhole, we go back to our normal measurement, so it curves in like so. Then our bust is 34. I know her bust is 33, I'm using 34. So that's the same. I'm also putting a dart in front. So her waist is 24, I'm using 25. So I'm putting an extra 2 inches. Then the hip Her hip is 33, we're using 34. Using an extra 1.5. So it goes like this. Now, like I explained, shoulder slant is just 1/2 inch. Because of the shoulder pad. Then our so our lapel length, the lapel width, I mean the neckline width is 2.5. The neckline length is 3.5. Okay, then you curve it back up to 3 inches, like so. So this is how it looks. Then now remember that we have buttonhole. We're going to have a buttonhole, right? So we're going to give allowance for that. I'm going to give a 1-inch allowance from this lapel for the buttonhole. Okay, so now our under bust, the lapel will stop at the under bust. It won't go down to the waist. Our under bust is or like in between the under bust and the waist. So our under bust is 12. So the lapel will stop at, let's say 13. Let's say 14. The lapel will stop at 14. So now we would leave. Remember that I said that we're going to leave a 1 inch. This is our buttonhole. This is for the buttonhole, right? So now this our curve here, this lapel here, we take it down to the waist, like so. Okay, then take this whole measurement down 1 inch down, like so. So now we cut. If you don't, in my on my YouTube channel, I have a video on how to cut a double-breasted jacket. That's the ones with 2 buttons. So if you don't know how to do that, you can always just go to my YouTube channel and check for it to watch it. I explained in detail how to cut and sew a double-breasted jacket there. So for the sleeve, so for my sleeve now, the client's sleeve length is 25. So I'm going to be adding an extra 1.5 inch, 1/2 inch for joining and shoulder, and 1 inch for hemming. So we go. Her armhole is 16. Okay, so we mark like so and mark like so. So because it's a suit, right? So I'm going to be making her armhole 17, so it's not so tight, and also because we are putting a shoulder pad. So now the bottom, I'm going to be marking 8. I'm going to be marking, so how the bottom of the sleeve is going to be 8 inches. So we'll mark it like so. Of course, keep an extra 1 inch sewing allowance. And her elbow is 10. So we also need to take note of that too. And her elbow is at 15. So we cut. Okay, so now we want to cut the facing for the lapel region. The facing has to be at least three-quarter inch shorter than the main front. So the facing has to be shorter, basically. So, and we are going to cut the facing to the middle of the shoulder, like so. Mid shoulder. Okay, now so we are cutting the side front lining. So this is what I did. You place the lapel facing on the lining and take it in by 1 inch, because this is the sewing allowance. So you place it on the side lining by 1 inch, right? Try to pin it down, because if you can, so that it doesn't shift before you cut, and then you cut. So okay, so now we're going to cut the back lining.
Okay.
So the back lining is also the same thing. We're doing the same thing for the back lining, making it three-quarter inch shorter than the fabric. Okay, so now for the back lining, one of the linings would, as in the overlap, would remain this way. Then the other one would come in, and then you have to cut it in a bit by about ½ inch. Okay. So the other one is going to come in a bit. So this is how it's going to look. So you remember that. Okay, I can continue. So basically, by the time this is how it's supposed to be. So by the time you finish sewing, you understand better. As you're sewing, you understand why one came in and one went out. To know how to sew this jacket, you have to go to my YouTube channel on how to sew a double-breasted jacket. It's almost the same thing. It's just about the same thing. This one is single button, single breasted, so it's the same thing. So if you want to know how to sew it, go to my YouTube channel and click on how to sew a double-breasted jacket and watch. For the sleeve, we'll also be doing the same thing, keeping 3/4 inch, making the lining shorter, than the fabric. Okay, then also then for the body of the dress, the body of the jacket, the fabric I'm using is Mikado fabric, so I won't be doing much. But if it's for normal fabric, you're going to use hairstay. It's better to use hairstay for suits. Sometimes they even double the hairstay so that to give it more structure. But me, I'll just be putting single hairstay on the body of the jacket. Okay, because I don't need too much. The fabric is already strong already, so I don't need much structure on the body of the jacket because the fabric is already very strong. Okay, so like I said before, on how to sew the sleeve to a jacket is different, so you have to actually go to my YouTube channel and see how we sew the sleeve to the jacket. Thank you. So this was how it turned out. The jacket, she didn't button her jacket, so we can't actually see the fitting, but this was the jacket that we made, and the trousers were not boot cut, they were straight cut. So thank you for watching. We hope you would try yours and send us a feedback. We would also love to hear your comments, or if you have any questions, we would also want to hear from you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.